What does Black activism have to do with trans rights? Why is disability activism lumped in with trans activism? Why is feminism forced to cover all groups, in particular men? And what does intersectionality have to do with all these questions? Intersectionality is a term first invented by Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989 to refer to the material reality of the intersection of sex and race, specifically regarding Black girls. Lately, as many words have, the term has lost its original meaning and is often used to refer to general inclusivity, wherein excluding anyone for any reason is mean and bigoted. Exclusion is not necessarily a bad thing. Many aspects of life are exclusionary as a result of personal boundaries. For example, sexuality or friendships are exclusionary because they require the participation and consent of both parties. Unfair exclusion would refer to institutions or public areas, such as government, being excluded from certain jobs, exclusion from rights, such as the ability to vote or own land. The exclusion of men from feminism is not a negative because feminism focuses on the liberation of women from the patriarchy. A focus is needed for feminism to be an effective form of activism. Similarly, one cannot be upset that people are excluded from animal rights activism. If they were to focus on human and animal issues, then the goal of helping animals would be watered down and ineffective. Lumping trans activism with other causes makes it difficult to focus on the intended cause, and is often derailed by an insistence to focus on the trans activism instead of the intended goal.
I know that you're not going to like hearing this, but abortion is also a men's issue and a trans issue. We are at the 1-year anniversary of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, and I think folks still don't know that abortion is an intersectional issue. Abortion is a trans issue not just because trans people get abortions, but because trans rights and abortion rights boil down to the same thing, which is government control and what you and I do with our bodies. As uncomfortable as it may be to hear, abortion is also a men's issue because trans men have abortion, trans masks have abortions, and we need cis men who don't have the capacity for pregnancy to be fighting for abortion rights. Roe v. Wade was overturned a year ago by a Supreme Court majority that, for the most part, does not have the capacity for pregnancy, and we can't have that happen again. Planned Parenthood currently has a petition to expand the Supreme Court and for transparency requirements around the justices. You can sign it at ppfa.org/reform. Abortion rights activists have long said that people without the capacity for pregnancy, like me, need to be vocal allies in this because we need to be sharing in the labor. And as long as I have this platform, I will be fervently pro-abortion because I am pro a life-saving procedure and pro your right to your bodily autonomy. Our fight is far from over, and my place is fighting alongside you for your bodily autonomy and for mine. The sooner we begin working together, the more effective I think we'll be.
The purpose of this bandwagoning is an attempt to claim more legitimacy by attaching to older and more established movements. This linking makes it difficult to criticize one without being portrayed as criticizing the other. In turn, this leads to racism, ableism, and the decimation of feminism as an effective movement.
No, I'm not going to stop, for 2 reasons. First of all, I am Black. Second of all, I'm bringing up Black women to demonstrate how utterly absurd it is to say women and trans women when you would not say women and Black women. I'm demonstrating why it is bigoted. Because if you were to say women and Black women, if you were to say Black women aren't women, they're Black women, everyone would call you out for being a racist and a misogynist. So when you say trans women aren't women, they're trans women, it's exactly the same thing. Trans is an adjective, just like Black is an adjective. If Black women are women, then trans women are women.
For example, the portrayal of Black women as being similar to trans women, or in other words, Black women as being the same as men dressing up as women. Black women are women. There has never been a misunderstanding of the sex of Black women. Slave owners profited off of the reproductive labor to make more slaves, and experimented on Black women to create the field of gynecology. Because of their race, Black women were given hard labor and considered to be hardier than white women, but that is due to the intersection of race and sex, not because Black women were considered to be men. Trans people tend to be more psychologically and physically disabled than the average population, at least part of which is due to the introduction of hormones and surgeries, both of which have high complications and long-term health effects.
It has been a decade since my sex reassignment surgery.
I had my SRS 10 years ago.
It's been almost 4 years since I had the first stage of my vaginoplasty.
I had my second SRS revision surgery.
I am getting a second surgery.
After my surgery, I was just in such a dark place that I didn't really want to talk about it. I didn't really want to have to go back into it and feel all those feelings over again.
I had a few complications, bleedings, infections.
I've had complications and I've had a hard time.
I did have some complications and I did have some, concerns that not everybody deals with.
I thought it would make me happier, and initially it did. Was that worth the constant issues I've had? The dilation I have to do for the rest of my life?
I'm having the worst time with dilation.
I was experiencing a little bit of dehiscence, which is basically when you are so swollen that the sutures that they put start to rip open. It was as bad as it sounds.
I had trouble urinating. I kind of walked around with it for a year before I seeked help.
The reason I'm dilating twice a day is because if I miss once, it is so painful. I like dread it so much because it's so painful.
I went to dilate again that night and I think that I moved a stitch. I don't know what happened, but something happened and I was in excruciating pain. It felt like literally somebody had like shot me or stabbed me or burned me or something down there.
I had to dilate and I had to try to open my urethra up and it was just like, yeah, I'm going to start crying.
I was bleeding every time. I literally was going to pass out. I threw up because I had so much pain.
I remember like bawling my eyes out saying like, what did I do? Like, what did I do to myself? I fucked myself up. I'm never gonna heal from this.
My body is constantly trying to heal after surgery since it considers it to be an open wound.
I mean, what can I do except go and have another revision?
I remember starting to cry in the surgeon's office because I was like, I'm depressed and I'm in school. It's painful. Like, it's a lot.
The issues I had very early on should have been indications to me that I should not have done this, but I hated my male self so much that I needed to. And now there is no way to go back.
You can never go back.
When you get a surgery, it's not always gonna go well.
If I had known about the irreversible physical damage I caused to my body, then I would have never done any of this.
It's very much a commitment for life. You're going to have to rely on doctors for the rest of your life.
Don't be like me and deny problems until it's too late. Rather, address them so you can be happier and live a healthier life.
In a way, trans individuals often choose to disable themselves through gender-affirming care, wherein they ignore the side effects of those medications because they view their gender to supersede their physical health. It is ableist to actively choose to disable yourself, and furthermore, to include access to these health-destroying actions as being a needed form of health care akin to that of actual life-preserving care. And of course, who could forget the defanging of feminism, as the term itself has been redefined, along with woman, to include men who want to be women, and to include those women who seek to be something else but still desire the benefits of female class consciousness and, however reluctantly, recognize that they are indeed different from male counterparts. Feminism therefore becomes inclusive of trans women despite being male, and cannot criticize anyone but the most privileged male, the cishet white man, allowing so-called feminists to ignore that sex-based oppression hails from men of all races, creeds, and denominations.
Okay, so I've started to get over some of the comments that I've been receiving for the past few days, most likely from my new followers, because a lot of them are very any and every choice that a woman makes is feminist. Personally, I find to be bizarre because I make sure to identify myself as, and my videos as, intersectional feminists. So phrases such as that or these, they do not reflect an intersectional way of feminism. They actually identify more closely with choice feminism, which is a brand I hate. We're gonna have to define what being a feminist, an intersectional feminist is, and if you don't like that or how I'm speaking, you're free to unfollow me. In its most basic form, feminism is defined as the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes. It's about dismantling the patriarchy rather than backing every individual woman's choice. Where intersectional feminism comes in is shining a light and listening to women who are not normally prioritized. So women of color, plus-size women, disabled women, trans women, just essentially women who are not white and skinny, because that's the only representation that us as feminists have been having for the past century. Intersectional feminists should be seeking out to critique one another just as much as the patriarchy. Because not every decision that women and feminists make is right. It's why that whole girls supporting girls movement does not hold up. Because it can be weaponized against marginalized people. Phrases such as that allow women, racist, homophobic, transphobic women to get away with their bigotry, then hide behind girls always support girls or feminism. It can also be used to defend some patriarchal values because, oh, some women like that. The whole girls support girls movement, that originated from white feminism, so choice feminism, which itself comes from capitalism. Because under capitalism, corporations can pretend to be your friend and ally. They put on this "the future is female" bullshit act because they know that a lot of y'all will be falling for it. Know that by printing the words empowerment on a t-shirt, a lot of you guys will be buying it. because you're so desperate to show the world that you're cool and trendy, which is what mainstream feminism has become. But the thing is, behaviors such as this oppose intersectional feminism because it's making you content with your position in the social structures, particularly the patriarchy. Contentment is bad because that means that there's going to be a severe lack in reflection and questioning things, which therefore means that there's going to be less change. And this is by design. You're not meant to question anything. Movement has been co-opted and simplified to female pride. I want you to feel good and proud to be a woman because then you don't want to fight for anything. Just be focused on spending your money because you want to extend your stay. Part 2 coming out.
In turn, this protects minority men who are essentially deemed woman-light and allows for the ignoring of oppression and misogynistic behavior from anyone
As a gender
else.
inclusive feminist, I am unapologetic about wanting men to have nice things. And by this I mean, I want men to experience the full range of human emotions. I want them to have access to any emotion they are feeling at that time. If they are sad and grieving, I want them to have space to be sad and to grieve. I want them to be able to ask for help, to show that they're vulnerable, to show that they're in pain without anyone policing them, without anyone implying that they're weak or not masculine, without anyone trying to shut down their emotional experience. Think about the last time you saw a man experience genuine joy, open-hearted joy about something that wasn't within the very narrow box that men are allowed to be excited about. I'm not talking about a video game. I'm not talking about an album that dropped. I'm talking about felt joy of some human experience, touching grass, seeing a butterfly, watching a bird. I don't care what the fuck it is. I want men to have access to affection. I want them to be able to cuddle their friends. My girlfriends play with my hair all the time. If I want touch as an emotional resource, I have access to it whenever I want. I want the men in my life to have access to exactly that. I want their sense of being loved to come from a dozen resources, not just romantic love. So when I say I want everything for men, I mean whatever they were denied by their fathers, whatever they were denied by their uncles and brothers, whatever their guy friends told them wasn't cool, whatever their girlfriends who internalized patriarchy told them was unacceptable for them. I want them to have all of it. And I will never apologize for advocating
If you
for
try
men.
to criticize the forced inclusion of trans activism in any of these groups, you are then accused of being against the entire group. By making the two appear inextricable, under the banner of progressivism, it provides a protective barrier to trans activism which becomes synonymous with good, kind, and accepting, even though it is very much the opposite. This, dear viewers, is where we part. I was thinking about this recently, where pretty much whenever you talk about gender, trans issues with an average person, a regular normie, they assume that lesbians, gays, and bisexuals are also involved. And then often feminists are lumped in and blamed for the same stuff. And so when you start critiquing this, you often find the same people are also critiquing feminism and gay activism because they view everything as being one lump thing. And the thing is, yes, they're all liberal causes, but a lot of these things are completely at odds with one another. Women's rights is completely at odds with trans rights, and the same thing goes for gay liberation. And that's one of the reasons that it gets so frustrating when I'm accused of, well, if you're gay, well, shouldn't you support the trans activism? No, because it goes against gay rights. Like, my sexuality is based on acknowledging that biological sex is real and immutable. Sexuality is based on sex. And that's even why you're not allowed to discriminate against homosexual people legally. It's because of a discrimination against sex, because sexuality is linked to sex, because there's an expectation of women and men being heterosexual and following gender roles. It all comes down to biological sex is real and immutable, and when you come down to denying that, that's where we get into issues. Anyhow, and part of the problem with this is that when you bring it up with anyone, you either get accused of being a bigot, because if you criticize trans issues, you must be criticizing feminism and gay rights as well, or you're accused of, if you're gay, then you must support every other topic under this umbrella, and that's just not the case. Anyhow, if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know in the comments section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.